Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to have you. Welcome. I'm glad to have you. And today is our second class on the four-part series of Siksastakam, Basking in the Rays of the Benediction Moon. It's a beautiful title, isn't it? Very attractive. First, I want to pay obeisances to my spiritual master, Nama Om Vishnu Padai, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine. Before I start, I just wanted to mention that Pranjal sent me a text and pointed out an error that I made last week. So I'm going to share that with you. I said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears once in the day of Brahma, which is 4.3 billion years. However, I neglected to include Brahma's night, which is of equal duration. So Mahaprabhu actually appears once in every 8.6 billion years. So let's help us keep a perspective how rare it is that we're here speaking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his Siksastakam. Let's read the first verse of the Siksastakam together. This class, as I mentioned before, we're going to be focusing on the first verse, and we're going to be breaking it up into phrases, but we'll get to that in a minute. And I'm going to share my screen so we can say it together, although you can keep muted, otherwise I think it would be too disharmonious. But let's try to reflect on the meaning, what we're reading, and ask to be blessed with some aspect of the confidential understanding that can help us improve our japa. So let me share with the Siksastakam. Share. Okay, I'm not going to do the Sanskrit. Let's just do the English together. Can you all see okay? Are we good? Okay, good. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. So I'm going to stop the screen share, but before I do, I want to point out that the way Sanskrit goes, sometimes the beginning of the verse is at the end. So here in this last phrase, Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan, that corresponds with the first part of the verse, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, and that's where we'll go to begin with. Let me open this up. Okay, so we're going to be studying, as I mentioned, each phrase because the phrases or the entire verse is a condensed summary of all the subsequent verses that come after this. And so when we're studying the first verse, we're getting a complete preview of the Siksastakam. And that's to say that this first verse...
Muted, Prabhu.
It looks like I lost internet for a second, so thank you. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Let me get out of this screen share one. So I assumed that you heard until I saw that we were cut off, so I'm going to speak from there. All of what I was saying is all this is to say that the first verse of the Siksastakam contains the essence of all the steps of developing love of God and the glories of chanting the Mahamantra that we're going to be speaking about. So Gauranga Mahaprabhu says that the most perfect form of devotional service is chanting the holy names. Really, when we stop to contemplate this, it's really quite a grand statement because there are many of the angas or the limbs of bhakti are all powerful, but Mahaprabhu is quite emphatic. So if we've ever wondered what might be the best service we can offer, we now know that chanting the holy names is the best service we can offer the Lord. As I just explained, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan is the first phrase we're looking at, and that is identical to the phrase I mentioned last week called Nam Sankirtan, or Sankirtan of the name. Now, Sri Krishna Sankirtan gets more specific than Nam Sankirtan just means chanting the name, but Sri Krishna specifies that we're engaged in the Sankirtan not just of any name, but Mahaprabhu is asking us to chant Krishna's name. He gives us the Maha Mantra, which contains 3 words. I think we all know them, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. And I wanted to share a very sweet definition of these sacred words that's given to us by Gopal Guru Goswami. As a young boy, Gopal closely served Chaitanya, and in one incident, Gora expressed some concern about chanting while using the latrine. But Gopal told him, no worries, the holy name can go anywhere and not be contaminated. And Mahaprabhu was very pleased by this instruction by this little boy, Gopal. And so he gave him the name Gopal Guru. Therefore, Gopal Guru Goswami, I would think has good, significant blessings for his faith in the holy name. So I'm going to read what he writes. It's a beautiful definition of the 3 words. So we get a grounding of the Maha Mantra this way. He writes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He teaches the truth to the living entities, thereby destroying their nescience along with their sinful reactions. Therefore, he is known as Hari, which is another form of Hare. The personification of the Hladini potency of Krishna, the internal energy, attracts the mind of Krishna. Therefore, she is known as Hara, who is none other than Sri Radha. So with this, we now have 2 definitions of Hare in the mantra, and Gopal Guru Goswami continues. The name Krishna indicates the Lord of all transcendental mellows, who has Sham Varna, or the color of a rain cloud, lotus eyes, who is the Lord of the bliss of Gokul and the son of Nanda Maharaj. And for Ram, he writes, he who is the embodiment of transcendental mellows, the primary cause of all pastime manifestations, who enjoys eternally with Sri Radhika, is known as Ram. By chanting Hare Krishna, we remember Krishna, who relieves us from the cycle of birth and death, and we seek blessings of Sri Radha as well. So Hari, also another definition for Hari is one who takes away attachments and obstacles on the path, or also one who steals the mind and the heart. So he so much attracts us that we turn our attention away from our attraction to the world and focus it on him. And in doing that, he also removes all of the material impressions in our consciousness. And Ram can also refer to Krishna's brother, Balaram, who is all-powerful. And of note, Balaram is known as the root of the serving ego. He gives us strength for our spiritual project, and he can bless us with a transformation from our false ego to our eternal serving identity. So I often think when I am praying to Balaram, I think about this, that he is the giver of our spiritual ego. And you can pray to Ram to give that, to reveal it to you, because that's one of his sevas to Krishna. And just a quick side note, I gave you in your handouts a picture of the Maha Mantra. And I did that because you can worship the visual form of the mantra. So like if you can print that out and frame it, and you can offer incense or prayers, or you can also meditate on the visual form of the mantra while you're chanting. That's also a helpful meditation tool. Now, as I said, Mahaprabhu indicates our kirtan should glorify Krishna, which with the Maha Mantra, which is known as the Great Chant for Deliverance in the Kali Santarna Upanishad. In that Upanishad, we find this mantra, the Maha Mantra, which is interesting because it's the only mantra in all the Upanishads that's given as a mantra to chant in Kali. It's very uniquely an Upanishadic mantra, which is also unique to what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought. He didn't just bring a mantra, but an Upanishadic one, which is well of interest to people these days also. But in that Upanishad where we have the mantras, what's happening is the sages have just asked Lord Brahma, who's the original living entity and secondary creator of the universe, they've asked him what is the most easiest and effective way for people in the current cosmic cycle to attain liberation. So Brahma answers by giving the Maha Mantra. And he says that these 16 names are specifically designed to counteract the influence of Kali, which is significant, as we heard last week, to purify the mind and elevate the soul in transcendence. And the Padma Purana also echoes this focus on Krishna's names in a beautiful verse, which I think I'd like to share with you in the chat, because it's something that if you like, you can, it's a verse that you might like to memorize at some point. That's an option. And the verse is very beautiful, the Sanskrit. Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Bina Tvam Namino. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure, which means that the holy names are a reservoir of all pleasure once we actually chant the pure holy names. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there is no questions of it being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of nature. This is because Krishna and Krishna himself are identical, or the name of Krishna. So this is something to meditate on, and it's a verse that periodically to read it or say it or memorize can help us with our mantra meditation, because when we're informed about what we're doing, it has more potency to move us and encourage us. So when we're sitting and we're meditating, by chanting Krishna's name, I am acknowledging Krishna's presence right here with me. And there's another verse from the Brihad Naradiya Purana. Maybe I should share this one also. It's Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Eva Kevalam, Galo Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyata. In this age of Kali, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. So in the phrase, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan, Param means transcendental, and Vijayate means let there be victory. So by this, Mahaprabhu infuses and empowers the process of Sankirtan with all success by this saying, let there be victory for the transcendental congregational chanting of Krishna's holy names. He says, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. By these statements and his own example, Chaitanya has endowed Sri Krishna Sankirtan with the power to thrive throughout the world and enable chanters, to enable us to be victorious. And as we spoke about last week, he came to give the spiritual method for this age, that he doesn't come in every Kali Yuga. As we just clarified, it's 8.6 billion years. And other avatars come in other Kali Yuga cycles, but when Krishna himself comes as Chaitanya, we're given a special dispensation. No other avatar, any other Kali Yuga gives Krishna Prema. Only the Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu is imbued with Prema. And Prema is known as the confidential fifth goal of life and is considered the highest attainment for a human being. Other kirtans and processes, they may give mukti, which is the very famous fourth goal of life, but they can't give prema. And prema is actually quite a confidential, like I said, is a confidential fifth goal of life. But only Mahaprabhu's kirtan can give that. Other Indian spiritual systems only know about mukti, and that is the highest goal. But the Gaudiya Vaishnavas understand prema is a goal beyond that because of the facility that we have to engage in a loving personal relationship with God himself. So in this verse, it's describing how Krishna Kirtan bestows prema and continuously bathes the chanter in prema. Mahaprabhu wants us to be successful. He wants to immerse us in prema. And so he's very clearly saying, this param vijayate, it's a call to exclusive devotion. Become one-pointed in your devotion, he said. Focus your attention on Krishna. Focus on your attention on Krishna's name, and for sure you will attain prema. And this same message is given in the Gita and the Bhagavatam. In Krishna's closing words to the Gita, it says, Man mana baba mad bhakto. And we heard this translation last week, this beautiful translation, where he says, you are well loved by me, so I shall speak for your good. Be mindful of me and devoted to me. Offer to me, bow to me. You will come to me alone. I promise you this truly, for I love you. So he's talking about the hearing and chanting about him are the means to achieve him there. And in the last canto of the Bhagavatam, in the very last chapter, the Bhagavatam leaves us with this message. It says, I offer my adoration to Hari Krishna, the Supreme, the kirtan of whose names destroys all sins, and humble submission whom ends sorrow and suffering. So we have the same message from both the Gita and the Bhagavatam, the core texts for our lineage. And by speaking of the glory of Krishna's Sankirtan, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to do is to awaken faith in its efficacy in us. What he's asking us is to trust him and be benefited. So as we saw last week, the first stage in the development of prema is shraddha, or faith. And Gora is trying to develop that faith in us by saying, this Maha Mantra will give you all success. It will destroy the fire of conditional life. Now, although devotional service is very rare to attain, it can be attained, and it's just, we said, by faith or trust, as well as with an intense desire to obtain it. Therefore, in this very first part of the verse, we encounter the very first parallel between the message of the Siksastakam and the stages of developing prema. So you could You can look at that handout I gave you that I talked about last week, which is the correlation of the holy names between the names Siksastakam and the development of prema. And you might want to look at it because we're going to speak something about it today, but also very much in the next two classes. So, as I said, Shraddha or faith is the most important stepping stone into the world of bhakti. If we want prema, we need to begin cultivating faith by hearing about the process, the philosophy, and everything about Krishna. Now, our acharyas explained to us that faith in bhakti is a little different than ordinary faith because bhakti is a spiritual energy. So faith in bhakti means to be blessed by the spiritual energy, to be blessed by the spiritual energy to trust. It's a seed of bhakti. So if we have developed some faith, some shraddha in bhakti, we've been escorted into the possibility of achieving prema. We have begun the process, and we should bow to that knowing, that gift. So we're to value Shraddha and carefully cultivate it. I likened it last week, or in quoting, actually, I think it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to a newborn baby in the heart. And to cultivate faith, to cultivate Shraddha means to challenge the illusory assumptions that the rest of the world answers to. This takes courage, as we have experienced, because the whole world is answering to the call of their senses. The stark reality is that people are solely engaged in sense gratification. I mean, that is a generalization, but it is, if we look carefully, a valid one. So we should be careful, otherwise we can stunt the development of our bhakti by becoming swayed by society's misled people. And faith is developed and nurtured in many ways, but let's look at two. As we take up a practice, we'll receive external and internal confirmations about what we've learned, and this itself will inspire some trust. We'll trust a little more to continue. And Mahaprabhu assures us, good, continue. All good fortune awaits you. Just begin. Just chant Hare Krishna. And in the chanting, the holy names will respond to us in personal ways. Now, faith is also drawn from Shastra, or the sacred texts. As we hear transcendental knowledge, insights awaken, and these are confirmed within, and we'll begin to recognize we'll recognize the reasonableness of the truths presented. Now, the truth about nature, the nature of reality, is called Sambandha Jnana, which means knowledge of relationships. And we require factual knowledge of reality and how everything is related in order to have a foundational grounding in our spiritual life. When we understand the characteristics about the nature of reality and things that exist, when we know who we are, why we're here, what is valuable, what is virtuous, what is the nature of the world, the nature of God and our relationship, then illusion and ignorance begin to lose their exclusive grip on us, and we become educated how to act and act in ways that are beneficial for us. So by chanting Hare Krishna, we please Krishna, we associate directly with him. And by doing this, we learn to identify the false values in our hearts and the ways that we offend bhakti, the holy names, devotee, or the deities. And then as we progress, we learn how to avoid these obstacles that block our progress. And by hearing from the sacred texts about the knowledge between the relationships of ourselves and the world and Krishna, we begin to work on removing the contamination of the heart. So the faith that grows from hearing the sacred texts is called enlightened faith. We acquire spiritual intelligence through such hearing. we develop spiritual eyes about how to see the world around us, how to view ourselves, how to view others. And by hearing, we gradually awaken to these truths more and more. Now, our acharyas describe that the outward expression of shraddha, or trust, is surrender. In other words, it's not just a mental construct that we think, okay, I have faith. But when we trust what we hear about Bhakti and the holy name, we begin to move into the shelter of the spiritual energy. And the first stage of surrender takes the form of taking up a practice. We're encouraged to actually engage with the holy name, to chant the holy name on a daily basis. And this surrender, which is initiating a practice, is the most important aspect of bhakti, because every prospect that is available to us is erected on the stage or foundation of surrender. And our goal is to increase the degree of our surrender. Whatever little step we take to surrender, Krishna reciprocates. So there's initial surrender and initial faith, and these mature with time and expand and deepen and become part of our lives on a daily basis. So with faith in the efficacy of the process, we're situated on the path, and then faith-filled surrender moves us along. And to move along, we require enthusiasm, determinations, and patience to practice bhakti. And we'll find pretty early on that in order to practice bhakti, to hear about Krishna, to learn the text, we really need the association of devotees. And through that association, we find the these necessary qualities: enthusiasm, determinations, and patience to engage in a steady practice. And as we take up a practice and begin to surrender, sadhu sangha will further help us. The association of Vaishnavas will further help us. In fact, it's described that the association of the Vaishnavas is prominent throughout our progress through bhakti. And so, coming to that, Mahaprabhu, after he praises the glories of Sankirtan, he then describes how the holy name is imbued with 7 transcendental qualities. So we'll look at the next phrase, which is the first 3 words of the verse. And if you have that handout, you can look at the Sanskrit. It's Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So Cheta Darpana means the mirror of the heart, and Marjanam means cleansing. So Sri Krishna Sankirtan fully cleanses the heart. That's a quite straightforward statement, but let's not gloss over it too quickly. Our entire material existence is due to an impure heart. All traditions recognize this quandary, but not all of them fully cleanse the heart. Or if they're powerful enough to factually do that, they're very difficult to practice. Now, this concept of cleansing the heart corresponds with the second verse of the Siksastakam that we're going to explore more next week. And it pertains to the stages of sadhu sangha, association of devotees, bhajana kriya, the practice of bhakti, and anartana vritti, or the stage of clearing the impurities from the heart. So this phrase and verse 2 of Siksastakam speaks about all 3 stages. All other verses in the Siksastakam only address one stage in the development of pure love of God. But this one describes or addresses 3 stages because they're so closely linked. And if we consider this carefully, we'll understand that by hearing in the association of devotees, we become inclined to take up a practice, right? And then it's through the continued association of Vaishnavas that our practice is solidified and encouraged. And when we are steady with our practice, this affects change, this affects transformation, this affects the cleansing of the heart. So we can't come to the stage of cleansing the heart without the help and guidance of the Vaishnavas. Both are required. We could kind of put it like in an equation. Vaishnava Sangha plus practice equals cleansing the heart of impurities. And this together, combined together, is known as sadhana, or a spiritual practice performed within a conducive lifestyle. One reason why Sri Krishna's Sankirtan is so glorious is because it not only successfully and thoroughly cleanses the heart, which is difficult for many other paths, or to do it is difficult, but to chant the holy name is just so simple. It's such an easy process. Just chant Hare Krishna. Just use your tongue to say the holy name. But here we are. I'm not inclined. I'm not inspired. Maybe I'll chant later. I'm quite busy. It's too hard. We have all these reasons why we make chanting hard. But what we should understand is all these forms of resistance and doubt, they just speak to the condition of the heart. And therefore, we move forward past the resistance because we're trying to get at the dirty heart and clean it. And then once we do, the entire difficulty is removed. And it's not a small project, obviously, because the heart is tainted by impure thoughts and desires from limitless lives. It's called, limitless lives. We have karmic impressions that impel deep and insatiable desires to gratify our senses or to make our body happy and to put us in the center of our lives. So when we're covered by this illusion, we make the mistake of identifying with our bodies. And even after we've heard that we're not the body or the mind, we still identify. It takes a while to actually really understand that we're separate from the mind body. The most intelligent people of the world think that they are their mind body. But this grand error causes us to be unable to understand our real self-interest and how to achieve it. Therefore, we're missing out on what's most valuable and pleasure-giving. So desiring to lift us out of this predicament, Gaurasundar says that of all the practices of bhakti you can do, and they're all extremely powerful to liberate us, Sri Krishna Sankirtan is the topmost. It's easy, it's efficacious, there are no contenders. So, as I described, we're establishing our foundation for all subsequent advancement. And the more that we pay attention to putting these aspects of chanting and sadhana into place now, the smoother and quicker our progress can be. Now, Mahaprabhu, as we just heard, he compares the chitta, or the consciousness, to a mirror. It's a mirror by where we can actually see ourselves. But when a mirror is caked with dirt, obviously we can't see ourselves properly in it. But if we cleanse the mirror, cleanse, in other words, cleanse the heart from pollution, then we'll be able to see ourselves and no longer identify with matter. We'll come to realize our true self. And when we do, then we begin to enthusiastically engage in activities that are in our best interest. Now, it's interesting because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells his devotees to chant a fixed number of rounds on the mala or the prayer beads every day. So that's interesting to me. I've often wondered, what is the significance of a fixed number of rounds? But at the very least, when we have a fixed number of rounds, then we have a committed amount of time that we're spending time with the holy name every day. And we heard that the holy name is going to completely purify the heart if we chant. So we chant, and we chant a certain amount of time every day. and it requires daily attention. Just like we bathe when we wake up every day, so we chant as soon as we wake up every day. We want to be clean externally and internally before we interact with the world and people. We ought to come cleansed before others to ensure that our interactions are grounded in spiritual vision and proper consciousness. And we continue to cleanse ourselves externally throughout the day. Say, for instance, we might brush our teeth after eating, or wash our hands after using the toilet, or adjust our hair or our clothing. So in the same way, we want to retain internal clarity and purity by chanting throughout the day. And of course, that doesn't mean that we're going to have malas with us all the time, but we can chant in our mind. And it's so pleasurable to chant Krishna's name. We can do it between anything we do. Now, in the Gita, Krishna says that the material energy is insurmountable for a jiva. It is absolutely impossible for us to be freed from the fetters of matter without contact with Krishna. And in this regard, Mahaprabhu reassures us. He says that even though cleansing the heart is a significant task, we have help and it's been made easy. So what's difficult and impossible can be effortless as long as we try to control the mind's negative statements. Now, one thing that we understand, obviously, we've heard, is that Krishna is non-different from his name. Now, that means that when we chant Krishna's name, we come under the influence of Krishna's spiritual energy known as Swarup Shakti. And it's through this internal energy that Krishna manifests all of his pastimes and the entire spiritual world. His internal energy is what his most intimate devotees are constituted of, and his internal energy is the source of his bliss. So we know that the material energy is extremely powerful over us. It creates this vast universe. In fact, it creates multi-universes and keeps us captive here without the slightest chance of release without grace. But the spiritual energy is unlimitedly more powerful and is fully capable of liberating us. In fact, the internal Shakti of Krishna even overpowers him. That's why we say that love conquers God. This internal energy, the essence of this internal energy is love. So it's so powerful, this Leela Shakti, that it assists him in forgetting that he's God, so that he can immerse himself in the intimacy of his loving relationships in Raja. And this, the essence of this internal energy, Hladini Shakti, is personified as Sri Radha, and she completely captivates him. She makes him her servant, or love makes God its servant. And he said, very clearly, Krishna said, I am a disciple in Radha's school of love. So that most powerful Shakti that can control God, that Sri Radha is constituted of, that the entire spiritual world rests on, is fully present in Krishna's names, fully present. Everything is possible for us when we allow this Shakti to come into our hearts by taking up the holy name and allowing ourselves to be infused with the energy of Bhakti. So simply by placing ourselves before Nam, who is all-powerful and all-kind and the perfect object of love, we receive his grace and we can fulfill our own purpose in love. So he instructs us about how to love and about all of our unlimited possibilities in the land of love. And we take his invitation through his holy name. He has come to us in the sound vibration of his name, and that way he takes us by the hand and inspires and guides us from within to be successful. In the Gita, there's one phrase where he says, Buddhi Yogam Dadami. He bestows on his devotees the particular buddhi or knowledge by which they can attain him. And Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, commenting on this phrase in the Gita, says what Krishna is saying here is he's saying, I myself appear within you and impel the dynamic function of your heart. So it's specifically Krishna who guides us in the heart that we are able to attain him and not otherwise. And therefore, the primacy of Krishna's holy name. Now, the next phrase in the verse is Baba Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Baba means existence, and Mahadavagni Nirvapanam means the greatly blazing forest fire. So this phrase tells us that material life is like a blazing fire. We can only try to imagine what it would be like to be in the middle of a blazing fire. I just happened to find out this week, I'm from California, and somebody said, oh, there's recent wildflowers in Southern California. And if you've looked in on them, you'll get an inkling of the power of fire and the suffering it produces. Fires pay no heed to where they burn. They devour anything in their path. And you can fly any number of planes in on a wildfire. You can position any number of firefighters to battle them on the ground. But every firefighter knows that ultimately you have to pray to God, send rain. We need rain. And we are similarly in the middle of a blazing fire, although it's this truth is covered by the material energy. We can't see it before our eyes because we don't understand our actual position. But our position is that we're forcibly subjected to the fire of birth and death repeatedly. And this grand fire hides beyond our view, but it is not beyond our experience. And the holy names, they want to stop this raging conflagration that no human effort can put out. But Nam Sankirtan completely extinguishes this fire of material existence. And by chanting in full perfection, samsara completely ends. So when we're assured of this release as a sadhaka, then we're encouraged to follow the ideal and character of pure devotees by chanting on a daily basis, to bathe ourselves in a connection with the divine energy, to spiritualize our mind and body. And ultimately, Mahaprabhu said that our goal is to chant the holy name day and night with firm faith. So after liberating us from the cycle of birth and death, in its second stride, the holy name relieves us from the threefold miseries of the world. Those, and perhaps you've heard of the threefold miseries before. They're the miseries of the body and the mind, such as disease and mental anxiety, or miseries from others, man, beasts, insects, and so many other living beings. There are miseries from natural catastrophes like famine, flood, epidemics, pandemics, and earthquakes. So Chaitanya says anyone who desires freedom from these miseries will adopt the process of chanting and glorifying the name, fame, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we've said many times, the Bhagavatam also repeatedly says that we cannot derive the proper benefit from other methods, not pious atonement, not speculative knowledge, not meditation, not mystic yoga, because even after following these, engaging in these methods, one engages back in the material realm because the mind remains uncontrolled, being contaminated by the base qualities of passion and ignorance. But those we are freed from the influence of the three modes of material nature by the grace of the holy name. The next phrase is Shri Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Shreya Kairava means the white lotus of good fortune. And Chandrika Vitarana means spreading moonbeams. So what we're being told here is that after the fire of material life is extinguished, the chanter is relieved by the cooling moonbeams of exceptional transcendental fortune. So the first two stages of chanting remove the negative and the impurity from our hearts. And the third stage is positive engagement that begins to take us to full auspiciousness. So Sri Krishna Sankirtan spreads the good fortune by promoting our highest welfare. On our own, we don't know what our highest welfare is, but Krishna does, and he's given us the means to attainment. Now, this phrase corresponds to the sadhana stage called ruchi, or the stage when we develop a taste and attachment for the practices of bhakti. And some commentators explain that the poetry here is trying to show us that the practice of Sankirtan acts like moonbeams that cause an attachment to spirit to bloom in the heart of the chanter. It's exactly like how the moon causes the white lotus flower to bloom. A white lotus is considered very valuable, and therefore, by using this metaphor of the white lotus, it indicates the highest achievement is attained by constant engagement in Krishna's service. Now, it's also important not to confuse, just the busyness of an active day as a better way of service than just sitting down and calling out to Krishna with his holy names. So this poetic statement that talks about the stage of ruchi is a stage where the heart now is cleared of lust and material desires, and we actually become happy. Our heart becomes pure and happy. That light of the moon and the whiteness of the lotus offers us blessings and benedictions, and we become free from all other desires. But we just keep the desire to serve Krishna. I wanted to read one verse in the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami. He writes, "Of all that is auspicious, the holy name of Sri Krishna stands supreme. Of all that is sweet, the holy name is sweeter still. It is the eternal spiritual fruit of the wish-fulfilling tree of the entire Vedas and the embodiment of the absolute truth, endowed with full consciousness. If anyone even once chants the holy name of Lord Krishna, either with faith or indifferently, the holy name delivers him from the ocean of material existence." Isn't that beautiful? In other words, there's no knowledge or practice that will bring us the auspiciousness that the holy name readily gives us. Okay, let's go to the next phrase, Vijabadhu Jivanam. Vijabadhu means the wife of all education, and Jivanam means life. The holy name is the life of all education. It's the essence of all knowledge. Now that's interesting, right? Because that's kind of like a transrational statement. You're chanting a mantra and it's the essence of all knowledge. That's an interesting statement. And this phrase corresponds to the next stage in sadhana called asakti. The attachment that we gained from the practices of bhakti and ruchi now develop and deepen into genuine attachment for Sri Krishna himself. So the difference between ruchi and asakti is that in ruchi, we're attached to the practices of bhakti, and in asakti, we become attached to Krishna. And now asakti is the final stage of sadhana bhakti. You'll remember we spoke about 3 types of practices. It was sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. Well, when we reach a Sakti, we come to the final stage of sadhana, which is the dutifully following of rules. And we move then into the next stage, Bhava Bhakti, which becomes spontaneous love of God. So in Bhava, we will follow the rules to set an example, but really our own practice becomes impelled by spontaneity, just pure loving feeling. So in echoing Mahaprabhu's statement that the holy name is the life of all transcendental knowledge, in the Gita 9.2, Krishna says, Bhakti is the king of knowledge, the king of secrets, the ultimate purifier. It is directly perceivable, religious, easy to practice, and imperishable. So the 9th chapter of the Gita is right in the middle of the Gita. It has 18 chapters. It's right in the middle. It's called the King of Secrets, the King of Knowledge, that chapter. And nestled, so right in the middle of the Gita, we have this secret. The highest knowledge is bhakti, is loving devotion. In other words, the highest knowledge is love. And we can only know Krishna through love. And when we love him, he'll reveal everything to us. So it's interesting because knowledge means loving service. So it's an active principle. Knowledge becomes active. It becomes transformational. To serve is to love, and to chant is to serve, because we learned how the chanting is the core of all the services. So I'll say that again so we can meditate on this. To serve is to love, and to chant is to serve. So within chanting, our prospect of loving exists in its highest form. The next phrase is Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. Ananda means bliss, and Buddhi means ocean, and Vardhanam means increasing. So this correlates to the stage of Bhava Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti is the dawning of love for Krishna, and it is the stage where it's described as the rays of prema are coming through in Bhava Bhakti. So Nam Sankirtan at this stage doesn't just give some pleasure, it generally awards ever-increasing ocean of transcendental bliss. You know, the happiness we can experience in the world is paltry, even if it can be called happiness. It's just so insignificant. And it's described how the happiness of self-realization is many times greater than any material happiness. However, greater than self-realization is the bliss of realizing all-pervading Brahman, which is called Brahmananda. But that Brahmananda is compared to a single little drop of water in the ocean of the bliss of bhakti, which expresses how the bliss of bhakti is unsurpassed happiness in the material and spiritual worlds. And that's why it's described that Bhava Bhakti just mocks liberation. It just makes light of the highest attainment of all other paths. There's nothing comparable to it. So when we are able to chant without offenses and our bhakti has matured, then we begin to experience an infinite ocean of ecstatic bliss. And at the stage of Bhava, the subtle bodies, our subtle bodies, mind, false ego, have become destroyed, and our eternal nature becomes evident. And obviously, we are infinitesimal beings, small, infinitesimal. However, although we're so minute, our capacity for happiness is not minute. The soul can experience bliss that goes on ever increasing. So as we become perfected in sadhana and we leave sadhana into Bhava Bhakti, what we were formerly attached to things of this world, now we have a natural aversion to them. We're averse to anything not related to Krishna, and our heart melts and becomes extremely soft. And then we're coming now to the mercy of the devotee comes into the presence of prema. In the next phrase, prati padam purnamrita swadanam, prati padam means at every step, purna amrita means the full nectar, and ashvadanam means relishable taste. So here Mahaprabhu says that chanting Krishna's name enables us to taste the full nectar for which we are always anxious. In other words, the devotee experiences even greater ecstasy in prema. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that Krishna's beauty is so enchanting, and his divine qualities and his sublime pastimes are eternal and ever fresh, and each causes the greatest ecstasy for one who loves Krishna. So it's described how when one is inebriated with divine prema, the jiva constantly drinks ecstatic nectar, and he sees the Lord's beauty as ever fresh and ever new. It's described that Krishna's beauty is so attractive that all the universe managers who were already surrounded by the finest beauties of the world, and they've already seen all the incarnations, the various incarnations that have come to the world, they see Krishna's form as unexcelled. Therefore, what do? They regularly come to Dwarka just to see Sri Krishna. They don't desire any benefits. They're not looking for conversation. They are just so wonderstruck by the elegant beauty of Krishna's form that they just want to gaze upon him because it's so extraordinary to behold. And we hear that Krishna's beauty astonishes even him. He's the supreme repository of superabundant excellence. That's one phrase that's used to describe his beauty. And then we have two verses, very sweet. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, on seeing his own form, Krishna was overcome with astonishment, and the yearning arose within his mind to relish its beauty. This form is the eternal ground and refuge of the entire host of captivating qualities, such as beauty, that are collectively designated simply as his elegance. And in Lalita Madhava, we have this beautiful insight into Krishna's thinking by Rupa Goswami. He writes, he's describing how Krishna is looking at himself in a reflection. And he says, what is this transcendent profusion of sweetness that appears before me now, inducing in me a feeling of wonder that I have never experienced before? How remarkable that even I myself find that my heart is overcome by greed on witnessing such beauty, and I anxiously desire to enjoy it just as Radhika does. And here we get the understanding of the genesis of Krishna coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to experience Radha's love for Krishna. So it's said that when the devotee sees the infinite beauty of Krishna, he or she desires to respond to Krishna by increasing their love for him, who is the beauty and love personified that they see. And when Krishna sees our intensified love, he enhances his beauty and shows more of his transcendental qualities to us as in reciprocation. Then the devotee increases their love, and Krishna increases his beauty, and on it goes. And it's described that in this competition between them, neither accepts defeat. So it goes on increasing internally in this dance of love. We're getting to be, I want to wrap this up here. So we're just going to touch on prema, and then we're going to go into a little meditation and then open up for questions. So if you look at that handout that I've been talking about, you'll notice that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this phrase corresponds to what he calls a second stage of bhava, and it corresponds to the 7th verse of the Siksastakam. But Rupa Goswami says that this phrase that we're discussing speaks about prema and the final stage and corresponds to verse 8. But whether this particular phrase refers to bhava or prema, basically it's expressing that Nam Sankirtan gives the chanter a taste of nectar of spiritual emotions at every moment. So now we come to the final phrase in the verse, Sarvatma Snapanam. This means that Nam Prabhu bathes all souls in love of God. At this stage of prema, the chanter is awarded shelter at Krishna's cooling lotus feet. Prema gives us spiritual senses by which we can then engage directly with Krishna in a relationship. We can directly serve him. By this time, our senses are fully spiritualized. The mind is fully spiritualized. We're completely bathed in love that ever increases. And it's interesting because as exalted as this is and beautiful as this is, the final glory, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the message. The final glory of Sankirtan is first experienced in separation from the Lord. So one's meeting with Krishna is imminent, but before he appears before us, prema will cause us to intensely long to be in the Lord's company. So upon attaining prema, there's a further deepening and a sweetening of the spiritual emotion. And this is it's achieved when we intensely feel the Lord's absence in our life. Feeling his separation, our love increases. And this intensity of feeling calls Krishna to us. He will respond and come before us. So when we're chanting the holy names purely, we become touched by the tenderness of the spiritual realm, and all the afflictions of the material conception of life and false designations that had once devoured us are ended. And Prabhupada says something very beautiful in the Nectar of Instruction. He says that one who takes up a bhakti practice will, quote, be forcibly dragged to ultimate success. And what he means to say is that we can rest assured that we will progress through all the developmental stages of bhakti to reach love of God. So with patience and steadiness and sincerity, we can have full faith that everything will be awarded to us in due course. And by trusting Mahaprabhu, his instructions and example, we're assured of full success. I'm going to share, I'm going to share with you in the chat a PDF, which is, let me find it here. It is called the Dhyan. It's called the meditation. I'll have to change my screen here. It's called a meditation on it's a meditational tool on the Maha Mantra. The Stir Krishna has to be changed to everyone. That is given to us in the Sanat Kumar Samhita, and it will help our meditation on japa. We can sometimes meditate on the visualization that's given in this jhan from the Sanat Kumar Samhita. So I thought we could end today before questions and answers like we did last week with 5 minutes of chanting. And I thought this week we could set a slightly different intention for our time with Krishna's name in this moment. And so what we can do is, if you like, you take a deep breath and we can try to settle into a different state of awareness. And perhaps we would like to become more aware of the true self in the heart that we are. We can withdraw senses and the mind and focus them inward on the self and the heart and allow the world to fade away. We can take another deep breath if we like, in and out, as you further experience the feeling of your soul at the heart and express your desire to be with Krishna, your supreme friend, by chanting for him now. So we can draw up a certain mood and intention with this prayer. O most merciful Lord Chaitanya, you are the source of all that is auspicious and a reservoir of unlimited kindness and compassion. With a heart filled with humility, I bow to you with deep gratitude. Please help me chant the pure holy name and please you and Sri Krishna. You have given me the rare gift of a human body and placed me on earth so close to when you were here. Everything is available to me, your instructions, the holy name, the saintly association of devotees. I feel immense gratitude to come into contact with your teachings, the holy name of Krishna and your devotees. Please let me forever remain in this shelter. Thank you for the sacred scriptures that reveal your beauty, qualities, and pastimes, where I can choose to immerse myself. Thank you for the association of your devotees who inspire me to serve you. Thank you for making yourself available to me in your holy names. May my gratitude blossom into loving service. May my heart become a proper place for you to sit. O Govinda, O Gopal, please draw me close to you. With humility, I, a pure spirit soul, remember you and our loving bond. O Krishna, may I give you happiness by chanting your sacred names. So we can begin chanting now for a few minutes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Any time when you would like to come back, you can. Hare Krishna. And if there are any discussion points, we can look at them now. Any questions, any thoughts, feelings? Haribo Yadin.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very nourishing deep dive. I really appreciated the point that you made. You talked about sadhana being simple, like the chanting being simple. The lips move, the voice activates, and it's a simple process. But there's something I've thought about that you also brought up, which was you mentioned that the sadhana includes a conducive lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think, such a key point
Mm-hmm.
because our lifestyle creates who we are. It creates how well or not we're able to focus on anything, right? And it often dictates what the mind wants to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So a conducive lifestyle is essential for the ability to have focused japa and to be able to successfully chant without it just being something perfunctory. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for highlighting that. It was only a quick statement I made, but
Yeah.
as you point out, it is essential. It's described how one of the important things for being able to chant the Shuddhanam, the pure holy name, is to not commit any offenses to the holy name. But that's not something you do you just don't sit down and try to avoid offenses when you're chanting. You have to avoid offenses throughout the day, throughout your life. It has to be that you are your behavior. Of course, in the yoga system, this is the yama and niyama, right? You're setting the foundation for a lifestyle. And I appreciate you saying that. In other words, if we're not compassionate to other beings, then what are we doing sitting down and chanting Hare Krishna? How is Krishna going to be pleased with how our behavior is with other people if it's not kind and compassionate? That's only one aspect. Of course, we have a lot of texts that give us very specific lifestyle changes, positive, and bringing in the do's and the don'ts. But I appreciate that, Yadana. Thank you for bringing attention to it. Valerie or Eze?
Hare Krishna. So this relates to something that you just mentioned, Mother Pamela, about the offenses. So you gave this this quote. It's like, to love is to serve, and to serve is to chant. And just I think it was this morning I was reading in the Bhagavatam about the offenses to chanting, and like in one of them it was like, if you do this one, I think it was like to keep committing offenses while hoping that basically the holy name will wash you so that you can keep doing it. Like if you're in that category, like you'll never be forgiven. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing like at least all of them to some extent, to a large extent. And so that sounds like it's very much not service. So can you help me make sense of both of these things? I'm committing all these offenses of the holy name, offensive chanting and attentive chanting. And then you're saying to love is to serve, and to serve is to chant.
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's different stages in our chanting. So at this stage, if we're not experiencing the presence of Krishna, it means there's some ebriety in our chanting, right? We're not chanting the pure holy name. And it's a process to mature and purify the heart so that we chant purely. So Krishna takes that into account where sometimes we will commit offenses. And but the remedy for that is described in Shastra. The remedy for offenses to the holy name is chant the holy name, right? So you could offend the name, but you continue chanting the holy name. That purifies you of the offenses, and you start learning how to avoid the offenses gradually. You start becoming more aware of them, and you start taking what could be seen as offensive out of your life, out of your habits, out of your thinking, out of your intentions. But yeah, you're serving even if you're chanting offensively. You're trying. Krishna's looking at the effort. Krishna's looking at the essence.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Pranjal.
Yeah. So there are two broad ways of chanting. One is like when we sit individually, chant the holy name on our beats with focus and attention.
Mhm.
And secondly, when we go out together and use musical instruments and chant.
Mhm.
So are these benefits equally applicable for both ways of chanting?
Yes, absolutely. So you have Sankirtan, congregational chanting, sometimes out in public, or sometimes, we have kirtans in temples or events. And then we have japa, chanting the holy name with mala, individual chanting. We're going to discuss next week the difference between kirtan and japa, and how Sankirtan is considered better in certain ways. For instance, others hear the holy name when we're chanting in Sankirtan. When we're chanting privately, it's a private meditation. But the congregational chanting of the holy name benefits anyone who's near and hears. And so in that way, it is especially auspicious, especially merciful. We'll go into that next week as well. it's there. Any other thoughts? Yeah, this meditation that I did at the end was to awaken more gratitude in our heart. And it's interesting because I was listening to this one lecture that this devotee was describing how we have material emotions and we have spiritual emotions, and there is a bridge between both, and the bridge is gratitude. So if we cultivate gratitude, the gratitude for these different aspects of bhakti that I described in this meditation as I read to you, then it will help us develop further spiritual emotions, to remain in gratitude, to think about the gift that we have, the benefits that we're being offered, the direct association with Krishna. These all will help us develop more spiritual emotions gradually. I think last week we were talking about, or maybe it was a different class, talking about the difference between spiritual and material emotions, or was that you speaking last week? I think, I can't remember. Anyway, I'm confusing it with another class. But spiritual emotions are exalted. Oh yeah, it was Jagadananda in the last class. Spiritual emotions are exalted. They're not something that we necessarily experience now. Sometimes we get a glimmer of them or a shadow of them, but they come at more advanced stages. But prior to that, we can work on gratitude and even feelings of separation from Krishna. We are separated, right? We're not feeling His present every moment in our lives, and we're not completely in an ecstatic state always. So we can feel separation from that. Yes, Madhurikshana, I'll put the texts that I read today into the WhatsApp group. Are you on WhatsApp, Madhurikshana? I think I tried to put you there, and I don't know if I succeeded, because I'm not sure if you're on WhatsApp. I don't think so, yeah. Okay, so can you email me and ask me for that then? Since I can put it in the WhatsApp, but if you're not there, then I have to do something else. And maybe you enjoyed this meditation that I sent you from the Sanat Kumar Samhita. This is, it's given as the dhyan for the Maha Mantra, and it can really help our japa. Okay, we're good? No, nothing else? Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And yes, Baba is attainable in Kali Yuga. Where can we witness this? In advanced devotees. There are advanced devotees on this planet. Yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey and giving me some seva to speak about Krishna. I so appreciate your company and your support, and I hope to continue with you next week. Yay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, the recording will go in the group. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.